Welcome to a session on literary criticism. And under literary criticism, today we'll be doing Explication of Modern Fiction Part 2. First, we'll consider the novel in the age of Virginia Woolf. The novel was one of the most influential forms of genres that the people received with enthusiasm in the 20th century because of immense potential of discussing, clarifying and analyzing diverse issues through this medium. All possible themes and subjects of contemporary significance were freely opened for discussion. A variety of complex ideas and scientific treatises were made available for the public as well as the literatures for their comments, which probably led to the expansion of fiction, for this genre widened felicity of expression and expanded vision of thought. Wells, Bennett and Galsworthy adhered to the Victorian tradition as far as the technique of fiction writing was concerned. Wells was particularly interested in exploiting modern science in his scientific romances. The Victorian age, with its scientific temperament, had given opportunities for the rise of science fiction. Galsworthy concentrated on fiction that focused on the social and economic problems of the society in the wake of modernization. Bennett was involved in projecting human confrontation with social reforms and the effects of socialization among social circles in the cities. A one-sided view of life was considered improbable to describe the reality of life in England, and hence the facts of contemporary life were presented with detached accuracy, irrespective of moral or ideological considerations from various points of view. The misery and wretchedness of the poor, the sufferings of war, sympathy for the homeless were realistically presented. Since the modern age is the age of disintegration of old values and tradition and the interrogation of existing customs and old beliefs, the modern novel faithfully portrays the doubts, conflicts and frustration of the people who were caught between the rise of capitalism and communism and the confrontation between science and religion. E.M. Forster, Somerset Maugham and Aldous Huxley commented on the predicament of English society of this age. The Victorian inhibition to matters of sex, love and marriage were overtly treated in the modern novel. D.H. Lawrence's Lady Chatterley's Lover and Sons and Lovers openly discussed various issues related to sex and marriage, and the novels were charged with obscenity. The writer did not write merely for entertainment, and everything superfluous was avoided. The narratives were highly descriptive, and the writer's philosophy of life, message and human connections were avidly revealed. However, Henry James, James Joyce and Virginia Woolf revolutionized the narrative technique because they felt the need to bring changes to the art of writing in order to explore the working of the human mind, which had remained undiscussed until then. The new psychological theories of Freud and Jung gave rise to particular psychological experiences in human beings, and the probing into deeper recesses of the human mind became indispensable. Not adhering to sequencing of events and moving back and forth regardless of the time factor, the stream of consciousness technique started gaining importance by swaying between various sense impressions and reflecting upon the thought processes in the mind of an individual. The physical appearances of characters, their habits and manners were vividly described, and the psychological novel portrayed the individual who was at war with himself. Henry James, James Joyce, Virginia Woolf, Dorothy Richardson and Elizabeth Bowen contributed immensely to the novels that were interested in revealing the covert aspects of human consciousness. Appraisal of Virginia Woolf as a literary critic. Woolf is regarded as a critic and a reviewer, and her first review was published in The Guardian in the year 1909. Her art, technique, and criticism reflect her personality, which is unique and not confined to a particular school or group of criticism. She is not considered to be a systematic critic, but conveys her thought-provoking and original views and convictions deftly. Though she recommends pleasure to be the ultimate aim of reading, she does not refrain from imparting certain seriousness to the pleasures of reading. In A Writer's Diary, she mentions about the habit of reading, creative writing and criticism, which her father, Leslie Stephen, was able to inculcate in her. Michael Rosenthal comments, I quote, "She has no theory of literature for which she argues, no set of rigid critical assumptions against which she measures the fiction, poetry and drama she discusses." Unquote. This shows that she is an independent critic who is not related to any well-defined theory, and she prefers to remain unconstrained. Woolf's comments are common sense points of view. Regarding the role of the critic, Woolf says that it is important to criticize intelligently and refrain from exaggeration. The reviewing profession has led to quarrel among reviewers who criticize for the sake of earning a living, and they do not provide guidance to authors, leaving the reading public confused. A critic, in the opinion of Woolf, should be unpretentious, pleasantly casual, vibrant, humoristic, and insightful. Her impressionistic mode of criticism strives to maintain a balance between subjectivity and scientific objectivity, which was stressed and demanded by critics of the time. Woolf's works maintain a creative balance between reason and emotion, rationality and sensibility, the individual critic and the impersonal method. Woolf's essays are informal, and she does not draw superficial conclusions. She believes that the critic stands between the reader and the author in projecting the soul or inner life in the true sense of the word. By using humor, providing insight into the works of art, and employing a dignified prose style, every sentence is made vivid and graphic. She has left behind her a significant body of critical thought that is unique and remarkable. Next, we come to evaluation of Woolf as an essayist. An original and modern novelist, Virginia Woolf contributed to the English essay with the publication of her first essay in the year 1904. She continued to write essays to free herself from financial burden and provide relaxation and relief from the strains of novel writing. Through the essays, she moved into a world that refreshed her ideas on different aspects of human life that were heard and unheard. With clarity of thought, felicity of expression, directness of approach, and controlled use of vocabulary, her creative genius brought out several dimensions of human life to the common man. She collected and organized 2 volumes of her essays, which were published as The Common Reader, the first series, in the year 1925, and Common Reader, the second series, in the year 1932. After her death, her husband, Leonard Woolf, published the essays in 4 volumes: The Death of the Moth in 1942, The Moment and Other Essays 1947, The Captain's Deathbed in 1950, and Granite and Rainbow 1958. These 6 volumes were subsequently published as standard 4-volume edition, with a 5th volume which contains Woolf's reviews of contemporary fiction. A Room of One's Own grew out of 2 essays she wrote on women and fiction, and The 3 Guineas is a long essay which grew out of subjects like the need for skirts among women, war, and whether women should be given the freedom to smoke. Woolf's essays are lengthy and immense in variety. the essays are broadly divided into two groups, namely social essays and essays in literary criticism. Her essays include essays related to reading, the essays on particular genres like modern essay or modern fiction, essays on individual writers and individual works, both of the past and the present, the English and foreign, and essays on the state of literature in a particular age, like the essay How It Strikes a Contemporary, and other essays on insignificant topics. Her erudition is reflected in the references to Greek, French, Russian and English and American writers, and her opinions on the genres like novel, drama, poetry, memoir, biography, letters and history. Her interests are primarily in the reader who acts, thinks and feels and is eager to indulge in imaginative stories or comments of someone else to make sense of the world. Woolf neither digresses from her views nor assimilates with the opinions of other critics. Literary references are used sparingly and primarily of interest to the reader who is curious to know what the author intends. Woolf has the ability to abstain from pedantry and make judicious use of her learning with prudence and artistic self-expression. Woolf's essays reflect on life and its ability to influence and in turn be influenced by literature. This way, her individuality and personality blend harmoniously with each other. One of the most important features of her essays is the use of the pronoun we instead of I. The use of the plural pronoun re-establishes her connection with the common reader without being subjective. Quite often, she uses a string of questions that are conversational, yet she maintains the objective acumen of the essayist. Hence, it could be deciphered that her essays maintain the delicate balance between preference and detachment. In her reviews, memoirs, letters and biographies, she projects the difficulties of other people that is crucial to comprehend the details of their relationships, feelings and mundane routine of life. The exposition of various episodes from the lives of individuals makes her a sympathetic observer of life and manners of the people in her society. Her particular method is to trace and develop the portrait of an artist from the impressions she gathers about them. She sketches the lives of several authors in her collection, but each characterization is different in tone and perspective. Though several characterizations are casual, her manner of approach to the author's attitudes does not take away the seriousness with which she constructs the characterization. The task of compiling a voluminous collection of essays is not a mechanical procedure. In fact, each and every part of the two parts of the common reader is ordered and the characters are outlined to affirm her power of understanding and predicting human qualities. She writes precisely with confidence about the writer's confidence of vision and values. She does not generalize, but with preciseness, she explains the artistic caliber of each writer and the age they represent. Woolf is aware of the qualities of a good essay, and her own essays are designed to give pleasure. Her essays are absorbing, simple and clear without the use of obsolete words or overbearing language. The language used in the essays is simple, easy and dignified. The writer's personal opinions do not intrude into the work. She has used wit and humor in the right proportion. She is terse with expression, and the phrases that are used are vivid and sensuous, not decorative but functional in purpose. The combination of brilliance and integrity, which is a rare attribute, is found in Virginia Woolf. Her ideas are refined, thoughtful, concentrated and effective. The words and sentences are written as an immediate response to the link between life and literature. She has that ability to synthesize human feelings and art by providing a selective and judicious explanation to the circumstances around her, and the power of art to comment on the relationship. The vivid pictures she draws throughout her essays prove that she has the ability to overcome limited and self-centered views of life around her. We now come to the prose style of Virginia Woolf. Woolf possesses the ease and authority of a writer, and her style modulates, regulates, and shapes language to sensitize the readers to issues of the 20th century. She is of the view that the principal concern of an essayist is to impart pleasure, and the writer must prune his talents to contribute to serve this end. She has simplified the complexities of the age using language that is lucid and dignified. She has been able to assimilate her thoughts using sentences that are plain, clear, and unambiguous. She has avoided bombastic language but maintained interest and excited the curiosity of the readers to stimulate their thoughts and opinions on several issues. Her essays maintain fluency of conversation, yet they do not degenerate into slang or jargon. Woolf does not sustain a confidential chat, but ensures that her ideas are rendered in a dignified manner. She articulates her opinions in a direct and straightforward manner without circumlocution, garrulity, insubstantiality, affectation, or mannerism. She writes with firm conviction and fuses her vision of life with her artistic expressions with absolute economy of words. Different from other prose writers, Woolf employs images that are vivid, graphic, poetic, and sensuous. Her similes and metaphors are original, and they communicate ideas in a direct and straightforward manner. We now come to the summary. Virginia Woolf was an English novelist, essayist, and biographer whose contribution to the growth of English essay and novel was phenomenal. Her modernist style changed the concept of the novel, which until then was a continuation of the form of the 19th century. The advent of psychology and the need to divulge into layers of consciousness of the individual witnessed the emergence of the stream of consciousness technique. Art had to mingle with society to bring a drastic shift in the pattern of thinking of the people on several social, economic, and political issues, ranging from education of women, their political rights, and patriarchy. T.S. Eliot describes in his obituary for Virginia, I quote, "Without Virginia Woolf at the center of it, it would have remained formless or marginal. With the death of Virginia Woolf, a whole pattern of culture is broken." Unquote. Woolf wrote extensively about several issues that plagued the life of women in England in the early 20th century, namely religion, institutions of power, equality in marriage, academia, and the exclusion of women from Oxford and Cambridge universities. With that, we come to the end of the session. I hope this was beneficial for you. So till we meet again, it's a lovely goodbye from all of us here.